The Soul Sovereignty podcast is a deep dive into the core wounds and deeply embedded subconscious beliefs that reside within the collective psyche so that you can reclaim your sovereignty and embody your power to experience freedom in your relationships. It is hosted by Jessica Falcon, International Soul Embodiment Guide and Relationship Coach. Visit thepathtosovereignty.com to enter a portal of transformation.
Why you don't need a partner. I have heard a lot of people talk about this lately, particularly when I talk to women. They'll say, I don't need a partner. I'm not looking. I don't care. And my response is, we're never supposed to need a partner. That's the wounding. The wounding is that we need a partner, but you can't experience sovereignty in your relationships, freedom in your relationships, if you are entering into it out of need. Now, I recognize that historically, this has been the case, particularly for women, starting around, let's say, between 2000 and 1000 BC, took a long time, the laws started to change, and women were no longer allowed to inherit property, own their own property, enter into contracts, hold money, and they were essentially forced to be dependent on men for survival. And this created a lot of the codependent dynamics that men and women still struggle with today, because it created this situation in which women felt like they had to comply with the demand, meet expectations, fulfill duties, take care of the emotional state, take care of the home, be in a particular role. Men felt they had to provide, they had to do, they had to furnish, that they were the authority, that if a woman had a different opinion or disagreed, that that was an affront to his authority. And we now have these modern day power struggles that are based on this very old dynamic. The unfortunate reality is that it was encoded into Judeo-Christian religion. So a lot of people believe this is just the way it is. It started at the beginning of the world. So we have to accept these roles as men and women. It was not encoded at the beginning of the world. It was not encoded at the beginning of creation. In fact, the book of Genesis, as an example, took almost 800 years to write, starting around 1200 BC. And we have archaeological evidence of pretty advanced civilizations from 4000 BC and beyond, potentially. This is archaeological records. And these civilizations, we have since uncovered their laws, uncovered their cuneiform tablets from ancient Sumer, as an example, that show us women were more sovereign and free, and they had the capacity to enter into contracts. This is before the creation of money as we know it today. They had contracts instead of an exchange of money as we see it. And the contract was, I will give you this, and then you'll return this amount of goods. And so they were dealing with money, but it was not in the same way that we give somebody a coin or a dollar bill or a euro or whatever that currency is for you. Women were allowed to do that. And so we read of these ancient relationships in which there was a lot more love. And it's true that in ancient Sumer, for example, there may have still been marriage. We don't know. There's no record of marriage in ancient Sumer. There are records of marriage in, say, Babylonia, not ancient Sumerian people. Sumerian people really, unfortunately, kind of died out and disappeared around 2000 BC, but the Akkadians and the Babylonians took over and continued to use a lot of the cuneiform scripts. The reason I bring this up is because so many people are operating according to these very deeply embedded subconscious beliefs that I have to need a man. And if I don't need a man for financial reasons, then I don't have to look, I don't have to care. If you need a man for financial reasons, you're going to end up in a codependent relationship. If you need a man because, then that will make me happy, then you're going to end up in a codependent relationship. So the fact that you don't need a man, hooray, celebrate that. That doesn't mean that you can't still benefit from a relationship. And I wanted to bring this up because what I do is help people create freedom and sovereignty individually so that they can experience that freedom and sovereignty in relationship. And we have to start looking at, I don't need a partner as a baseline, not a reason to give up, not a reason to contract, not a reason to not go out. It's not that you have to be looking, because the reality is also when you are sovereign, you're interested in soul-based relationships, because in order to be sovereign, it is about embodying your soul, which is why I call myself an international soul embodiment guide. That embodiment of your soul's truth, your divinity, is how you reclaim your ancient sovereignty. And as you reclaim your sovereignty as a soul sovereignty, that's why it's a soul sovereignty podcast, as you reclaim that sovereignty, then you know that when you're meant to meet somebody, they show up in your life. You don't have to go searching. You trust your intuition. You respond to that. You act on that. You know that you don't have to go do anything you don't want to do to, quote, meet a partner, that you will always be led to the divine encounter at the divine timing. And it doesn't come from need. It doesn't come from searching. These are all the old patterns. It comes from you living in alignment and opening up to receive, trusting your intuition, trusting your inner knowing, trusting your inner guidance. And then when you enter to the relationship, it's from a place of, I am already whole. I am already complete. I am already loved. This relationship then becomes an opportunity to expand into more love, into more connection, into more freedom, into more pleasure. So why are you in a relationship? What about being in a relationship do you want or not want? Why do you feel like you needed a relationship before and suddenly you don't need one now? Because that will help you see the ways that you may have been giving your power away to be sure that you are sourcing your power internally. And if you don't want a relationship, like you truly are not interested in a deeper or sexual connection with somebody, that's okay. But make sure that, because what I see particularly in women when they say I don't need a relationship, is that underneath that is actually a deep yearning or a deep longing. I see this in men too. A lot of men have a very deep longing for intimate, soulful connection. Is that they can't admit that to themselves because, I don't need it. I shouldn't need it. I don't want it, or it's too hard. And they have these wounds around it, or they feel like it's not showing up. And so they actually contract their energy into, I don't need it, and don't open up the receptivity to receiving that person in their life. And this could be from past wounds. This could be from frustration. This could be from a lot of different things that you get to be really honest with yourself about to discover, so that you can rewire your thoughts and beliefs, reprogram to your soul truth, and look at what you truly desire and be honest. It's a very vulnerable thing to even admit to yourself that you might want something you don't have, whatever that is in your life. For example, this month in the online temple of divine feminine power, we are focusing on the art of abundance. And that is not the type of abundance you probably hear people talking about on social media. It is soul level, divine abundance. It's activating that frequency within you that you already are. And the way I work with people is through activations and embodiment practices and teaching, so that we're also reprogramming the subconscious mind as you shift your frequency. And in this, we have to first start with, where are we thinking we're not already that? Where are we in lack? Where are we identifying with not enough? Where are we looking outside for that thing we think we want? And because that's so common in relationships, we're looking outside for that thing we think we want. Well, then people will shut down and say, I don't need a partner, when they actually are still looking for it because they're still not accessing it inside. So the real focus isn't, do I want, do I not want, right? The question, do I need, do I not need? The question is really, am I trusting? Am I in constant communion and relationship with my soul? Am I aware of the thoughts moving through me, the emotions moving through me, the desires moving through me? Am I attuning to this truth, trusting it and acting on it? Or what part of me is acting from contraction, fear, vulnerability, doubt? And that's a relationship that you're cultivating. This doesn't ever end. It's not like we just become sovereign and suddenly everything in your life is perfect. This is about bringing more and more of your soul light into your body, into your relationships, into your sexuality, into your experience. And that is a constant relationship with life, with your soul, with the earth, with everyone around you. And it just gets to be freer and more ecstatic, because you're living from that internal place of ecstasy, that internal place of fullness. So just ensure that if you're saying, I don't need a relationship, which signifies that you used to need, or that you might need, if you're really, really honest with yourself, that instead it's, I'm living from a place of fullness and I'm open to meaningful soulful connections in my life. And then practice that and align to that and do that. If you want support with that, the online Temple of Divine Feminine Power is a great way to do that. You can also check out working with me one-on-one as a relationship coach. And it's not to like fix or repair a relationship. It's to work with you to show up differently in relationships through the reclamation of your sovereignty. That's what it's really about. So feel free to like, comment, share this Soul Sovereignty podcast with anyone who can benefit. And I will see you on the next episode. If you want to begin a journey of transformation, I have a free course called 12 Days of Transformation that you can access at thepathtosovereignty.com. And I will also put the link below. Lots of love to you.